I call Mac Ducey.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. It gives me a great honour to rise and speak to this third reading of the Social Security Clothing Allowances for Orphans and Unsupported Children Amendment Bill. If I can start with a quote, Mr Speaker, from Victor Hugo, who says, "Nothing is more powerful than an idea whose time has come." And I think Tracy Martin's idea has come. I think it's time for her bill to be passed into legislation. And I acknowledge Tracy Martin. I'm yet to have a member's bill pulled out of the ballot myself, so congratulations, and for following this bill right through the legislative process. I also want to take some time to acknowledge Tracy Martin sharing some of her personal stories with us at previous readings to give this bill a context and a background. And it's very much something to remind ourselves that in a country like New Zealand, it is our personal stories, it is our experiences that bind us together and move this proud nation forward. While we're talking about the care of children, Mr Speaker, I just wanted to acknowledge yesterday was the Day of the Midwife, International Day for Midwives, and New Zealand has a world-leading midwifery system, and I think we need to take time to acknowledge yesterday's International Day of the Midwife. I know for personal experience, obviously not using it myself, but my wife did last year, Mr Speaker, and it is a fantastic service, especially for new parents who obviously don't have an instruction book and are learning as they go. And to engage with your midwife at the start of the pregnancy and have her support the whole way through to birth and aftercare is an amazing support. I worked for a number of years, Mr Speaker, for the British National Health Service, and I know for a fact they don't have the level of care in midwifery and the same system of the continuity of care of one midwife through. So just to acknowledge midwives in New Zealand. This bill is about supporting children's development. We know that children's development is important, and if a child does not develop rightly or correctly or go through the right transition of developmental stages, this can cause problems during their teenage years and later in their life, and very much poor outcomes. We know for children, especially for the age of 0 to 3, their brains are being hardwired at this stage, and there's a great amount of neurological development. In fact, I went to a breakfast in the Grand Hall here, Mr Speaker, a few weeks ago by the Brainwave Trust, which promotes understanding and research and evidence around neurological development with young people. And it is a very important stage of their life, and it's an amazing commitment that kin carers make to step in and support young children at this stage to ensure that they get the best start in life, to ensure that they reach their full potential. Of course, not all kin carers will be supporting young children. Some will be stepping in at a age of being a young adult. We know from our own experiences, I'm sure everyone in this House will know that it is an important developmental stage, being a young adult and moving into adulthood. And there's a lot of issues going on around pubescence, through identity, and very much taking that transition into supporting yourself. And we do know that young people need good role models and they need good support systems around them. And that is why this bill is right about supporting kin carers who step in to keep young people on the right track to making them productive citizens in New Zealand. We know this. I used to work in the Tavistock Clinic in London, Mr Speaker. It's where the attachment theory was developed by Bowlby, and we know very much that young people who have a strong attachment to people in their lives, whether it be their biological parents or kin carers, will go on and lead very productive lives. So it's about supporting this. It actually reminds me very much, Mr. Speaker, if I can talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And we know that young people need physiological needs around food, water, shelter and air, and you can put clothing around physiological needs for a young person. We know young people need safety, safety from violence and abuse, but it's also about love and belonging. And I think this is what this bill represents, about supporting carers who take the decision to step in and provide love and belonging to young people that are not biologically their children. And I think it's right that the government take steps to support these carers in any way they can. And I don't think it's right that foster carers will get this allowance currently and unsupported carers do not. So it's great that this bill will put them on parity, because we know, Mr. Speaker, that with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those young people who progress up that triangle go on to have self-esteem, they go on to have confidence, and they go on to make the right decisions in life. And of course the top is around the self-actualising of reaching their full potential. And we do know that we hope and that we aim for every young person in this country to go on and reach their full potential, to be productive, to drive New Zealand forward. Mr. Speaker, this member's bill will give orphans and unsupported children a clothing allowance parity with foster children. Currently, orphans and unsupported children, including some who are looked after by their grandparents, miss out on a clothing allowance which is available to foster children. This bill seeks more parity between the financial entitlements for orphans and unsupported children and the financial entitlements for foster carers. The purpose of this bill, Mr. Speaker, is to increase financial support to kin carers who are looking after children, such as grandparents raising grandchildren. The Social Services Select Committee has suggested inserting a new section into the Social Security Act 1964 to add a clothing allowance to caregivers who receive an orphan's benefit. To have this addition will ensure children are treated equally, regardless of their circumstances and who their caregiver is. We do know, Mr. Speaker, that there is up to 12,000 New Zealand children being cared for by wider family members. That's 12,000, Mr. Speaker. That's a considerable group of young people in New Zealand. This might be because of a death of a parent or because of breakdown in the family arrangements. I do know for myself, Mr. Speaker, dealing with constituents in my area and supporting examples of this relationship, one couple who were actually friends of the biological parents decided to step in and look after two young kids. And another example where grandparents decided to step in and look after a very young child. And I know from my own experience, Mr. Speaker, I'm learning very quickly as a new parent the commitment, the patience and the resources that you need to be an effective parent. And I could only imagine what it's like to step in this arrangement with kin carers and to continue to provide that. I think that needs to be applauded, and I think that it is right that we are ensuring parity for the clothing allowance between foster carers and carers of orphans and unsupported children. Mr. Speaker, this is a part of a bigger picture, a part of a white paper for vulnerable children, committing an extra $10 million to provide further support for kin carers. The $10 million, which is a capped fund and has the agreement by the Minister that they will work with Tracy Martin to look at providing further financial assistance to kin carers in a better, more targeted way. There is a ministerial reference group that has been formed, which includes representatives from grandparents raising grandchildren who are currently working through options on how this extra funding will be applied. This member's bill will give orphans and unsupported children clothing and allowance parity, and I support this bill to the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.